Hello everyone and welcome. Today we've got Deborah Carlisle Solomon, author of Baby Knows Best, RIE Associate and passionate advocate for Magda Gerber's work. RIE is Resources for Infant Educarers, and this is an approach that I use in my work with children, and it's what inspired the whole organisation of Peaceful Learning. Deborah I've known for about 5 or 6 years now. She was my RIE teacher and mentor when I took RIE Foundations in London, and we've had a supportive, nurturing relationship ever since. So without further ado, please welcome Deborah. So hi Deborah, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, great to see your face again.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It has. Yeah. Do you want to tell our audience how you got into this space that you're in?
I got into this space rather haphazardly. I gave a baby shower for a friend of mine, and someone else gave her a book by Magda Gerber called Your Self-Confident Baby. And I thought that's a very intriguing title, Self-Confident Baby. So I went to the bookstore and it was not there. This was pre-Amazon, when you actually had to go to a bookstore to buy a book. And as I was walking out of the bookstore thinking, too bad they didn't have that book, the woman who gave my friend the book was walking into the bookstore. And I said, they don't have that Magda Gerber book. And she said, of course I do. So she turned me around, marched me back in, and it had just been misshelved. And I've told her since that had I not serendipitously bumped into her, I might not have picked up the book. And RIE was really sort of, kind of underground. Not many people had heard about it then. So my husband and I took our son to RIE classes. And then when the children were 2, I thought, I really want to continue learning. So I took professional development training at RIE. And then roundabout soon thereafter, I guess, RIE was looking for an executive director, and I got that gig, and I did that for 8 years and also continued teaching. But then I decided I wanted to really return to just teaching, because that's what I most love to do. So that's what I've been doing for the last several years, because I love teaching parents and caregivers and talking about it like we're going to talk about it. It's just sort of never ending, as Magda would say, about peeling the layers of the onion. You just kind of keep on going deeper and deeper with it.
Yes, that's
yeah.
I feel like I'm at another layer, a big one, of that spirituality of being with children. And it's coincided with my own layer of spirituality being presented to me. And so I've been able to see it with new eyes yet again, and how beautiful it is to be with children, and the relationship and the connection, and really being completely 100% present.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I remember one of my colleagues, her class had finished up, and the father said to her, I came into this class, he said, I came into this class thinking that I was going to learn all about babies. And I discovered that, it was very humbling, and that I really didn't have anything to teach my son. My son was going to be my teacher. That when that when we're open, the children reflect us back to ourselves. And sometimes it's a little, think, I think I need to work on that. Kind of give us opportunities to see ourselves and grow in ways that we might not have discovered otherwise. So I think it's a real gift to live and work and be with babies and young children.
100%.
They're pure, they're unsullied.
Yes. And someone I spoke to the other day gave me another new perspective, that when we have children, our children actually choose us to teach us something. when their soul comes into the body, which was a very out there perception that I previously would think, oh, that's a load of rubbish. But I maybe there's some truth to that, you know, because when we give that time and that space for children to really express themselves, and to just really see who they are, that's when, for me, that's when the learning happens. For me, is when I really see what they're communicating.
Yeah. And to accept whatever they're communicating, right?
Yes.
I think that's what I've been thinking a lot about recently, because I've heard from so many parents who have been struggling more than perhaps usual because of what's been going on. And, you know, sometimes the thought is phrased as sort of, what should I do about this problem? You know, I need to fix this. And I think when we come from a place of accepting however the child is feeling or whatever the child is expressing, and sort of stay open to that, and also observe how we're responding, like my buttons are being pushed here or whatever it is. First of all, we're more available to the child. We can be more supportive of the child, but that's the part then that we can, there's something for me to figure out about myself. Why are my buttons being pushed right now? Because my buttons are being pushed, I'm not going to be very useful or helpful to this child. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, I've noticed when this is a new experience for me to really be present. So I've always thought that I've been 100% present with children. Turns out I haven't been, because I've been thinking about what comes next, what I'm planning for the near future with that child. So, you know, I know that they're going to get hungry soon, and then they're going to have a sleep,
I see,
etc., etc. But to be 100% present, and to also just eliminate all my preconceived ideas in my head that have traveled with me from my own childhood, feeling like I need to give this child something that I didn't have, for example. But just to really, really be 100% present has changed. It's a game changer. And I don't know how to, like, there's no clear instructions on how to get there. But I think years and years of self-reflection and therapy definitely helped, because, you know, we bring all our own preconceived ideas of and traumas as well, so that, you know, when my buttons do get pushed, it's because of something that's happening.
Ghosts in the nursery, right? Selma Fravor, Ghosts in the Nursery. So something from our childhood is being triggered, and to have an awareness, right, that this isn't, you know, my child's fault, you know, this is me getting triggered, this is my stuff. So, you know, Magda Gerber would recommend wait a moment, which there's a lot of wisdom in that, not just waiting sort of to see if the child can manage whatever's going on their own, but also waiting to perhaps discover that this is my old stuff, you know, I'm being triggered here. And so I'm not going to be able to respond very effectively to the child if I'm in the middle of being triggered. So I better stand here for a few moments and take a few deep breaths before I respond, you know, try to calm myself. That's so interesting that you have come to this recently.
Yeah.
But I think that's what makes it interesting to live and work with babies and toddlers, because it's just this sort of, for me anyway, this sort of constant evolution of going deeper and deeper, you know? At
Yeah.
first, it's kind of theoretical for me anyway. It was kind of theoretical. Oh, I get this. Oh, I can slow down. I can remember to tell the babies what I'm going to do before I do it. But then the more you practice, it just, I don't know, something opens up,
Absolutely.
which
Yeah.
is what you've been experiencing.
Yeah.
too.
So if any parents who are listening or caregivers who are sleep deprived, they're at their absolute limit,
Yeah.
and they're being triggered quite regularly. Do you have any words of advice there?
Yeah. Um, I think just as if a parent or a caregiver was noticing that a child was very tired or maybe even chronically tired, they would do something to figure it out. Sort of, well, how can I remedy this? What kind of change in the routine can we manage to support the child so that we can improve things? I think it's really important for the parents to sort of consider themselves first, because if they're depleted, they're just not going to have enough left to take care of their child. It's really difficult to care for a child as a parent or a caregiver. So, I encourage parents to, definitely get a break. And if, that means asking somebody for help, even if it's, my sister, I remember she has 4 kids. And when they were little, she used to have the teenager from across the street would come to her house for a half an hour every morning so she could go for a run. She had whatever you need to do, whether it's a bath where no child will be permitted to pound on the door because somebody else is minding them, taking care of them, whatever it is. I think self-care is really important. Meditation, maybe it's, what works well for one person may not necessarily be what somebody else needs, but some kind of technique, whether it's yoga, meditation, going for a run, talking to a friend, just going for a walk, on your own. But don't be all self-sacrificing, do things to take care of yourself, to replenish yourself, I think is essential.
Absolutely.
I think, so often, not so much now, things have changed a lot since my son, who's now adult, since he was a baby, but, in the old days, the books were just about how to take care of your baby. And now more and more, it's just great to see is sort of how can the caregiver take care of themselves, acknowledging the importance of that, because, it's necessary. It's part of the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When
That is taking good care of a baby or a child. Taking care of yourself is taking good care of the child. It's not selfish.
No.
It's anything but,
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sure you're familiar and our listeners are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I talk about this in my workshops. We all have those basic needs. They need to be met. And if they're not met, we cannot function.
Yeah.
We're in a state of survival. And so
Yeah.
if you as the parent or the caregiver haven't had their basic needs met, how can you function?
Yeah.
How can you give to the child in your care when you're tired or hungry, or not feeling safe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, one of Magda Gerber's principles was this idea of having a 100% safe space, right, for play. And, it's good for the baby, the toddler, for sure. It's helpful for them because they don't have some adult breathing, sort of looking over them, breathing down their neck, saying, don't touch that, or that's not a toy, or whatever it is, right? They have freedom in this space. But also then if the caregiver needs a break, even if the child's upset about it, they can say, I need to go in the other room for another minute. I need to remove myself. I think that's important.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
sometimes people, you know, the parents get into habits, they don't realize they're getting into habits, and then they're sort of realizing that they want to make a change, sort of something is no longer working. I think that's fairly typical, you know. Um, and I think to sort of stand back and say, you know, if I had my wish, how would I like this sort of typical day to go? What would it look like? And then if, you know, some gears have to be shifted, a habit has to be changed, then to go for it. And this is another thing I think that's come up. I've heard from a lot of parents who've written to me lately, have said, well, my baby or my toddler needs this. And so to distinguish between want and need, you know, if a child is in the habit of doing something, well, they don't want to change the habit. None of us want to change the habit. It's pretty uncomfortable to change a habit, right? We're sort of kicking and screaming. I can speak for myself. I am. But so a toddler or a baby may protest, but a protest, you know, is not necessarily sort of distress. I need this. So to make that distinction between wanting something and needing something, because in my observation, sometimes that's when parents are very self-sacrificing. You know, okay, I'm exhausted, it's the end of the day, but I'll lay in your room for 3 hours until you go to sleep because you need this. This is the only way you go to sleep. Well, you want this because this is your habit, right? So I think to sort of examine that, and sort of see if you can see the difference, I think is important. And by the way, I think you've heard this, Laura, but I did every wacky thing in the book. So I don't have any judgment about any of that stuff because, you know, I bounced my son, I did this, I did that, I did the other thing, and guess what? He's fine. But I think I erred on the side of being too self-sacrificing, you know? And so now I'm much more aware of it. I think I have my radar up for it, and I want to help parents, you know, take care of themselves.
And where's the line between what a child is needing and wanting? Because I've seen time and time again a child at night needing that. Well, for me, I think it's needing that connection and to refuel that love cup before they go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So when does that become a want rather than a need?
I think sometimes it's hard to distinguish. And I think sometimes it's helpful to be reminded that most babies, you know, not a newborn, I'm not talking about a super young baby, but babies and toddlers are competent. You know, they can learn to go to sleep on their own, but they won't learn until they have time to practice. And so they won't be practicing if somebody is staying with them until they fall asleep. And again, no judgment there for people parents, caregivers who do that, no judgment at all. But just saying that if the adult gets to the point where they no longer want to do that, to hold on to the fact that the child can learn how to do this, right? They can learn how to do this. They're competent. And they will discover that they can do this. So how important it is for the child to discover, wow, you know, I'm capable of this. So I think I remember distinctly years ago, there was a toddler in my class, and I could always tell that he was tired. He would come to class with circles under his eyes. And, you know, the parents had been helping out a lot for him to go to sleep, and he always seemed tired. He wasn't getting enough sleep in my mind. And the parents just decided, you know what, we're gonna work on this. And I really commend them. They did a 180-degree turn, and he was like a different child, you know. his play was different, because prior to that, it was really sort of lacking in energy and lacking in focus. And, sleep is always the first thing I ask about if anybody contacts me about, if they're having some challenge with a certain behavior or some kind of struggle. That's always the first question I ask. So tell me about the sleep, how much and when does your child go to sleep, etc. And I'm not at all dogmatic, but I'm pretty strict about sleep. That's pretty much the only thing that I am. Not rigid, but you know what I mean.
It's a basic need. It needs to
absolutely
happen.
Yeah.
So how can you create that space and create those boundaries with a child?
I mean, for them to practice going to sleep on their own?
Practice going to sleep, yeah.
I think if it was very straightforward and if it was one size fits all, then there would be one book and we would all follow it and it would just go swimmingly and everybody would sleep well. But every family is different, every baby is different. The answer to so many questions is it depends, right? As Polly Elam said to me. So there's not a simple answer, but I think one answer is practice doing less, whatever the less is, so that the child can practice doing more, right? And so when parents say, but I don't think she can do that. And I think, but she hasn't had the opportunity yet to practice, and she won't the first night. There will be a lot of upset, because this is a new habit that you're not following the old habit, put it that way, and you're trying to establish something new. So whenever we're trying to work on a new habit, we all feel a level of discomfort, right? And that's to be expected, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't persevere. That, which is not to say that so we let the baby cry it out. I think the child has to be reassured that we leave, but we always come back. We leave, but we always come back. But in my experience, the parents have been pleasantly surprised at how capable their child is. Sort of, they hadn't imagined that it was possible. And I think it's kind of easy that it happens quite easily, because in the early stages, maybe the baby falls asleep on the bottle or the breast, and then before they know it, this is sort of habit, and then maybe they want to make a change. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing.
You're very welcome.
If people want to find out more, if they want to contact you, how can they do that?
They can do that by either at my website, deborahcarlislesolomon.com, or by my email. I send out weekly parent guidance emails. And so they can, they can either email me or just use the contact form on my website to get on my email list. And then they'll get a weekly parenting email.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Good to see you again.